everyone. Welcome to SCARE. Thank you for joining us today for our Spring Savings Online training. I'm Taylor. I'm the Youth Programs Coordinator here at SCARE. And today we're going to dive into our third training out of our springtime trainings. And so in today's training, we'll be going over topics such as digital couponing, just using online resources to save money and find deals, and then just get into some light basics of budgeting and some tips for saving. So I know like when I was growing up, I'd always see my mom, my aunties using coupons. They'd be looking through all the papers, cutting it out, filing it into its different categories. And so now things look a lot different. So maybe you've used some of the paper coupons, and maybe now you've been diving into the world of digital coupons. And so today we're going to be focusing more on the digital side of it, since that's become very popular for different stores. And the main thing we're going to be focusing on first is just grocery store coupons. Food is a necessity. It's really expensive nowadays. And the nice thing is that most of these stores, a lot of the big chains, especially around San Diego, have different apps and online resources to find the deals and to clip the coupons. And it makes it a little easier to keep track of it, right? We don't have to file it and snip every little coupon out of the paper like we used to. And so it makes it a lot easier to track and automatically apply it when you buy things. I have a list of some of the main grocery stores around San Diego that definitely have an app. So such as like Vons and Albertsons, Smart and Final, Ralph's, Grocery Outlet, Food for Less, and I'm sure there's some other ones, but those are some of the big ones. And so if there's a different store that you go to, you might as well just check the app store to see if there's an app with the digital deals. But today we are going to be focusing on just maybe what it looks like for the Vons and Albertsons apps. I'm not going to dive into every single app since there are so many, but hopefully it helps you to get a better idea of what you can find on these apps and just how to navigate it a little bit easier. So I'm pretty familiar with the Albertsons and Vons apps. So that's the one we're focusing on, right? So if this is a place that you shop, maybe it's one of the other places. First step, go ahead and download that app. And for most of these apps, you're going to be signing in with a phone number. So make sure it's tied to your cell phone or the main phone number that you use. And then once you have that all set up, you can choose and find a store location. And it just helps to keep tabs on like what's in stock at those places, the actual prices, all the fun stuff. And so there's a lot of app features on most of these apps. It'll include things like actually doing your shopping. So you can add things into your cart. You can schedule deliveries. You can schedule it for pickups, and then you can just run to the store and pick it up really quickly without having to shop through every single aisle. You'll get to see the weekly deals. So whatever deals and promotions they're running for that week. They'll have a whole section for digital coupons with all the information about it and how to clip it. They even have a section for recipes. And what's really nice with the recipes is it shows you, ingredients that are stocked in those grocery stores. So you always know that things are going to be available. You can create shopping lists on these apps. And then also what's really nice too is if you use the apps, all the receipts are stored there and you can take a look at your past purchases. So again, we're going to be focusing on the Albertsons and Vons apps. So I just kind of took a screenshot of the very bottom. You'll see that there's like a little tab at the bottom that has things like home, shop, deals, my list, and member. And so for putting together your online shopping for delivery or pickup, you can go ahead and click on that shop tab. If you're trying to find and clip the coupons, it'll be in the For You deals. If you want to see your shopping list and what deals you've clipped, it'll be under my list. And then to take a look at your profile settings and see past purchases, it'll be under that member category. And so the other thing that's nice too, you might even realize that when you walk around some of the stores, specifically like Vons and Albertsons, if you go to an item, sometimes it'll even have a little barcode below it that says For You deal. So if you weren't aware that there was a deal, you can scan it on the app and apply it to like your clipped coupons. So Here's an example of what the screen might look like for if you're clipping the coupons. Again, for Albertsons and Vons, it'll be under the For You deals. And you can scroll through, it has it in different categories. So this is an actual screenshot of mine on my phone. And so you'll see it even will say like items you buy. So it'll start to realize your purchasing habits and recommend those deals first if they have it, which is really nice. Then you don't have to scroll to the bottom to find it. Um, so you can scroll through, look through the items. Like I said, it has when it expires, it has the offer details, shows you the actual like coupon price. And all you have to do is click clip deal. And you'll see like even in the bottom right section, there's that little tab that says clipped, and it shows that I have 17 items clipped. And so, like I said, it's pretty streamlined from here. So once I clip deals, when I go to pay, all I have to do is type in the phone number that I have, the one that same one that I entered in on the app, and it will automatically apply those discounts into like anything that's eligible for those deals. So all you have to do is just enter in your phone number and it'll automatically apply anything that you bought that has the coupon clipped for it also. And maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, things are also changing in San Diego. There was just something that was passed recently for grocery stores. They will most likely still have the digital coupons. They may also have to go back to offering paper coupons for people who don't have access. So things might change a little bit, but for now, they still have the digital versions, so we're rolling with it. Another tab that's super helpful is just the recipes tab. And so I, again, took little screenshots, some examples, but you can search for different recipes to try out. And it's really helpful because you'll see the estimated prices for the ingredients and like the estimated prices per serving. And then you'll also be able to look at all the ingredients and actually add it to your cart or your shopping list. So everything's pretty streamlined and you have everything right there for you. On the left, you see the picture has a couple of the options, right? Fettuccine Alfredo with ham, bell peppers, zucchini, parsley. Tells you even the amount of time it'll take to prep it, the estimated cost per serving. Obviously, that might fluctuate depending on deals and price changes, but um, gives you like a general idea. I think that's really good for helping to like stay focused and save money too, because then you know exactly what you need for each recipe. And you're not just maybe randomly buying stuff that you might make stuff out of. All right, so we're also gonna dive into finding some deals online. So I didn't want to spend too much time on the grocery side of it. Pretty straightforward. I think the more you play around with it, the more you'll get used to it. But I mean, grocery shopping is such a small part of the shopping that we do, right? We're doing a lot of other things, whether it's like activities or other needs for families or other shopping. So now there's some ways to find some deals online. Some of these you might have heard of, right? Like Groupon, that's a pretty popular one. But it's a neat way to be able to find different deals, especially if you're trying to find like a new experience. And so you'll see here, you can scroll through, has different gifts, experiences, has the different categories, right? So beauty and spas, food and drink, right? So let's take a look at what it might look like. Yeah, you can find some different coupons here, clip it this way. What's nice too, some of them are hit or miss. I haven't used Groupon a ton, only a couple times, but it can be hit or miss. What's really nice is you'll notice that it has things like the ratings for it. So you can see what other people's experiences were for it. All right, another one I wanted to show you guys was Ibotta. This one is an app for cashback when you shop. So the idea for this is it's an app that you buy and they'll have a ton of deals. So you have to plan it in advance. But if you almost like, again, like clip the deals or what you're planning to buy, and then you actually buy in the stores afterwards. Oh, here, this is better than me just saying it in my own words, right? How it works, you add your offers. So you can add cashback offers to your list, and then you can see your offer list in the app before you go to the store. And then once you go to the store, you buy everything you need. You can go ahead and submit your receipt and it'll give you cash back on those offers that are in the app. And then once you get to a certain amount, right? So once you reach $20, then you're able to withdraw those earnings. And so it's just another option. And this has great reviews. I've seen a lot of people. I tried it out for a little bit, not super long, but this is a legitimate like app. A lot of people have had a great experience with it. So it might be something to try out just for another way to get an extra, a little bit of cash back, on your purchases. All right, another one is PayPal Honey. And again, this is I'm trying to give you guys all legitimate sources for finding deals and saving, right? I'm not trying to get you guys scammed. But PayPal Honey, and it's an extension. So if you have Google Chrome, and that's like your main way to go to the internet, you can add it as an extension on here. And then whenever you do online shopping, this extension will automatically look for savings. There you go. It'll automatically look for savings and like look for little promo codes and coupons all across the internet in order to help you save on it. This nice little option again for just maybe, again, if you're already doing online shopping, all you have to do is have that extension and it'll help you save a little more. And then lastly, for at least like searching for some of these big deals, there's retailmenot.com. And this one that has a lot of like current deals. So maybe it's not always coupons, but just deals that are being offered right now. Has it for a ton of different vendors. So you can see there's like an Uber Eats one, Amazon, Target, Chewy. And there are ways to, here we go, like look through the different categories to see what might fit you best. And they also have stuff for like coupons and coupon codes too, right? So I can see that, eligible customers only, $20 off your order, could be something that you're eligible for, right? If you're doing online shopping. So I would definitely check this one out if you wanted to find some more deals. And then also if there are certain brands that you really like to, it's like your tried and true brands, one that you always purchase, you can even just go to their website and just search online for coupons because sometimes the actual manufacturer and the brand have coupons for their items. All right, and then another thing I wanted to mention, some of you may be familiar, but there's the Amazon coupons. So a lot of times it'll actually just show up when you have an item like in your cart or you're like looking to purchase an item. There'll be like a little checkbox and you'll see a coupon, give you the amount, 10% off, whatever it is. And there's also other ways to look up like price comparisons for Amazon. And again, you saw how some of the other websites pairs up with Amazon, so you might be able to find other coupon codes and promo codes just to have like stack the savings. All right, next, super briefly, just gonna go over gas rewards. So a lot of the major, gas companies like Chevron, Shell, some of the others, they have apps. So you put your phone number into it, and every time you gas your car, it like gives you points. And once you get to a certain amount of points, it'll be like 10 cents off per gallon. I've even had something like 30 cents off per gallon, which that does a lot when you're filling up your tank. And another thing that's really cool too is that if, like for me, I'm I'm talking about my own experience too, but for things like Chevron, since I shop at Bonds a lot of the times, they partner with Chevron. So if I buy certain items at Bonds, it gives me points that are eligible for Chevron and helps me save even more. So again, the magic of these savings is all tied to my cell phone number. So whenever I type that in, it'll, yeah, give me more of those deals, show me how much is off per gallon. And then there's also a way to compare gas prices. So if you're just trying to figure out what's the most affordable gas in the area, right, let's do alcohol. And based off of like what other people input onto this website, it'll show you the current prices and when it was updated, which is really nice because you can see, oh, this wasn't from a couple weeks ago. this person updated it 17 hours ago, that it's 4:47 at this superstar, right? And you can do a comparison for a lot of the different places. And so that's another good way to just save a little money on some gas. And then just some other tips for saving while you're shopping. So research deals, which is hopefully what some of these websites can help you do, right? You can take a look at what deals are going on, plan shopping around that. Plan ahead. So plan shopping around the deals whenever it's possible. And then also just like making shopping lists, right? Planning ahead for what meals you're going to cook for the week or what things that you need. So it doesn't come with some unexpected cost. And then just spend mindfully. So again, making shopping lists and trying to stick to it. I know it can be kind of hard, especially when you see those really delicious snacks that you and your kids might want at the grocery store. And then if there's ever something that's non-essential, something that you just want, a good tip is to just wait for a couple weeks to even see if it's something you still want. Like for myself, I'll see something on Amazon and I think, whoa, that would be really cool and really helpful, but I don't need it right away. So I'll just put it in like the save for later, wait a while. In a couple weeks when I see it, I'm like, I guess I don't need that. I've been fine without it. And that right there, in a way, saves me money. All right, next up, we're going to do some of the like super basics of budgeting, financial planning, like a budgeting 101. My disclaimer for all of this is that I am not a financial expert. These are things that, I mean, I've either done myself or done like research to like learn more about, but just the super basics of some budgeting. And so just some questions for yourself, right? It might be like, how could a budget help you with your financial goals? These are just things for you to think about. And you might already have some tips and techniques that you have for saving and budgeting already, right? So how can that be paired up with some of the advice that we're going over today? Or how might that align with maybe some of the budgeting tips that we go over? And then also another thing to keep in mind is just what are the obstacles that prevent you from reaching those goals, right? Because I think the more that we understand what makes it harder to reach the goals helps us find new ways to work around it, or at least be aware of it so we can plan for those obstacles. So budgeting has a lot of good purposes, right? Why do we do it? It can really help relieve some financial stress, not always all of it, but at least a little bit of it. It can limit unnecessary spending. It can help you meet your financial goals, and it can help with debt management, right? And that's just a few of the things that budgeting can help out with. It might be very stressful in the process, but I think in the long term, it can really help understand your finances and then also just relieve a certain amount of financial stress because you know what's going on. So, step one for you to do would be to write down your financial goals, and it could be both big and small goals. All right, so some examples could be save $500. It could be paying off a certain debt. It could be learning to budget or starting to budget if you haven't budgeted before. It could be just finding out more mindful money habits and maybe opening a savings account or a checking account. All right, step number two, and for me, this is one of the most important steps when you're, especially when you're first getting into budgeting, or maybe if it's been a while and you need to like revisit some things. But step number two is to just look at the past, right? So get a better understanding of what you spend every month. And so if you look through previous months, that'll give you an idea of what kinds of things you buy, where most of your money is going. And sometimes you'll like realize habits that you didn't know were making an impact. But it'll help you, yeah, understand your spending habits. It'll help you with your total income for the month and maybe what to expect. It can help break down like the essential expenses and the non-essential things that you spend on. And yeah, all in all, like looking at your past habits can really help to plan for your future budgets because then you know what to include in your budgets and what to expect. So spending can be like categorized into some different things, right? Some of the like three basics could just be like your fixed expenses, right? It's things that have generally the same amount every single month. You know, it's not going to fluctuate too much. You know, it's coming every month. So, like your rent or mortgage, certain bills, subscriptions to things, you're aware of those and you know that it's coming every month. There also could be essentials, and the amounts might vary depending on what you do for the month, but you know that you need to buy it every month. So, groceries, gas, transportation, you know, there might be a month where you're buying more groceries or less groceries, or you're driving around more. So those could fluctuate a little bit, but you know that you need it every month. And then non-essentials or non-urgent could be things like eating out or getting new clothes when you already have clothes, or like going out for coffee throughout the week. And everything's going to be different depending on your situation. There might be a time, or like, you know, closer to back to school time, clothes would become an essential, right? Your kids are probably grown out of their clothes, they need new clothes. Maybe it's a similar situation for you. Maybe you're getting a new job, you need some new clothes. That becomes an essential during that time period. So it's always going to change. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to go over a few of the budgeting methods. There's probably way more methods than this, but here are four kind of like techniques that a lot of people use to manage their money. So the first one is just the envelope method, which is pretty much what it sounds like. You have different envelopes or a different filing system, and you have cash in these different envelopes for different purposes. So I have one envelope that's for groceries. Maybe my budget is $250 for the month. And I know that whatever is in there is what I have for groceries. Or if I have a budget for eating out or social events, same thing. I would just put it in its own separate envelope and make sure I'm only taking from those envelopes during those situations. Another option could be having preloaded cards. So, you can go to the store and get a prepaid like Visa card, something like that. And you can get multiple ones to separate your spending categories. So maybe it's a similar idea to the envelope method, but without the aspect of cash. So you could have the prepaid cards, there's still the certain amount on it, so you can't overspend. And you might have one card that's for groceries, one that's for gas, one that's for, fun stuff, however it may be. But that's just another option for having kind of like a strict amount for each category. Another thing too is just having different bank accounts. So using different bank accounts for different purposes, right? So you could use the checking from one bank account for your main purchases or your main expenses like rent and all that stuff. And maybe you have a separate one that you put a little bit of money in every month, and that goes towards, when you have to buy the Christmas gifts or, back to school supplies, whatever it may be. And also there's just kind of like the general tracking and adjusting. So that one takes a lot of work, but just tracking all of your spending habits and adjusting the expenses accordingly. So I know that at the beginning of the month, if I budgeted for, $250 for groceries, maybe halfway through the month I check and I'm like, oh, I've already spent 200 and I'm only halfway through the month. So then trying to either spend less on going out to eat or spending less on doing other stuff. And now that money can go towards my groceries. So it's just kind of like giving and taking to make sure that we stay within the money that we have. And honestly, different things are going to work for everyone. And each one of these methods has some different pros and cons. So that's just something to think about too. But just a few of the main methods that people use for managing their money. And so if you were to create like a budget, which I recommend for anyone, this is kind of like the super basics of it, right? You'd have a section for income. So maybe on this day you're getting paid $700, and then you know that in a couple weeks you'll be getting another $700, so then you have the total of your income. And then again, we see those three categories I mentioned earlier. So we have essentials, we've got utilities, we've got groceries, we've got gas, and we have our budgeted amounts there. We've got the fixed expenses, right? Maybe you've got a few people living in the same apartment. Everyone's chipping in for rent. You've got $700 for rent. You have your $150 car payment, and you have $80 that goes towards your debt every month. And maybe you also know, I think it's important to have a social life or to treat yourself sometimes, right? Let's say you have an $80 limit for just yourself for eating out. These are all made up numbers right now. It's going to look different for everyone. But you have all the categories. So you have your total income, right? So 1,400. Then your total expenses. So the fixed expenses, essentials and non-essentials, which ends up being 1,370. Let's say there's a remaining $30 at the end of the month. There's $30 that didn't actually go towards any of those categories. So maybe now with those $30, you can put it towards an emergency fund, or you can, whatever the use is that works for you. And so just a few things on savings and funds. Just find out why you want to put some money aside. There are different reasons for it. So if you are able to put even just little bits aside at a time, it does add up. It can be helpful for the future. So here's a few like different things that people might save for, different types of funds. So if you've never heard of it before, it's called a sinking fund. And so a sinking fund is basically, it's what future expected costs will be like paid out of, right? So like I might have a separate like bank account that I put a little bit in every month. And I know that that's for things that will definitely come up during the year. So I know every year I'm going to be buying gifts for people. So instead of it coming out of my regular monthly like paycheck, I have like a little fund that will help me pay for those gifts without it feeling like it's being taken out of my current paycheck. Could be things like car maintenance. I know what to expect. I'm going to get new tires. I got to get an oil change. Same thing, the sinking fund and like putting the money aside for the sinking fund will help lessen the load when that time comes. Could be used for things like school shopping. There's a lot of different things that could be a future expected cost. It's going to come up, and you just want to make sure you have a little bit of money set aside for it so it doesn't hurt as bad when the time comes. And then there's also just the general emergency funds, right? So just having some set aside for, hopefully nothing happens, right? But that's not always the case. So just having money set aside could be for if there's a medical emergency, or if there's, something happens and, you don't get income for a month, then at least you have the emergency funds to kind of help out. And this is going to look different for everyone. And it's going to be different amounts, right? So you can decide what amount works for you, what makes sense for you. And yeah, it could even just be like if you want to save up some money for a family road trip, right? Just having a set little amount for traveling and being like, okay, well, I'm going to have to save up for a hotel or for gas and food, and just having like a little like fund on the side to be able to save for things like that. And lastly, just some tips for saving. I mean, I know we talked about things like the emergency funds and uh, the sinking funds, just saving for like big things like traveling, vacation, or events. But it can be really hard in the moment. Money is tight. We're trying the best we can. But some tips that are good for saving could be including savings in your budget, right? So yeah, maybe we have a category for groceries and we have a category for rent. But if you're able to include a category for saving, so then you have an automatic amount, $50 or whatever that goes into your saving, or $100. Another good tip too is that if you have a steady income, being able to automate savings with direct deposit. So it just helps too, where if you're getting a direct deposit from a job, maybe most of it goes into your checking, and then having a little bit that goes into your savings. So it doesn't look like it's in the same area as the rest of your money. Makes it a little bit harder to spend. And also, again, like when we had our budget and we had that $30 left over, instead of doing nothing with it or spending it on other stuff, that could always go towards, your emergency fund or going towards a sinking fund. And again, I know that like money is tight for everyone. In this economy, things are expensive. Even things like saving change in your small bills, it will add up. So have a little, piggy bank at home that you're able to put these things in. And then when the time comes, it'll add up. And also just like swapping a purchase for savings. So if there's a day when you're like, maybe coffee is included in your budget, that's something that's really important to you. But maybe there's one day where you're like, instead of getting coffee, I'm going to put this money towards, my savings or towards a little tattoo fund, whatever it is. So now instead of the $7 going toward the coffee, you just put that in place of something for savings. And so this is just like a little reminder too. Like I said, it can feel like saving little bits of money don't do much, but give it time and it adds up. So this is just like a little example of if you're spending $14 a day, which isn't ridiculous on the daily, right? It could be $14 just spent on getting lunch. I could go to the coffee shop and get coffee and a little pastry and it's $14, right? Maybe I'm going to the grocery store and I'm getting $14 in other snacks that I don't need. And so $14, it isn't a terrible price, right? It's not some crazy amount to spend. Like if I were to tell someone I spent $14 today, they probably would not think anything of it. But if I were to say I spent $5,000 today, that sounds different. So $14 seems like a pretty mild amount. But if you spend $14 for 365 days, that ends up being over $5,000. And so same thing if we double it, right? So if you're spending a little over $27 a day for a whole year, that ends up being $10,000. And I know it can be, yeah, really quick to spend money nowadays. I know I'm guilty of it for like online shopping. I see something and I'm like, oh, that's easy. I have $14. But then now seeing the amounts, seeing how much it can add up to, gives us like more of that incentive for saving the money. But then I know I'm talking about spending money, but keep this in mind when it comes to saving. So maybe you only have $14 right now, but if you put that into your savings now, it will add up. Just keep doing it. And here's a couple like pretty straightforward things for just being interactive with tracking your money and savings. So I always recommend the Fudget app. It's probably like the most straightforward app for budgeting and like seeing your expenses. So here's a little screenshot of what it looks like, but you can add different budgets. So maybe you have a budget for February and then a budget for March. And then you can add the different income and expenses and you'll see when it's green and you have it as like an income, it shows. And then if it's something that's an expense, then it'll like subtract it from it. And it does the work for you where at the bottom you can see the income for the month, you can see the balance remaining for the month. And so it's a pretty straightforward way to be able to track everything in a digital way without dealing with like Excel spreadsheets or anything too complicated. And then also personally, I don't know why, I love a little savings tracker or some type of financial tracker. So this one on the right just shows like a visual of like if you have a sheet of paper and you have these circles of $5, your goal is to save money. You could just put $5 in your piggy bank, color this in, and it'll get you closer to saving. But this is just an example. Maybe there's a debt you're trying to pay off. You can do the similar thing, but with like the amounts to pay off your debt. And sometimes I find it to be like really motivating. Then you'll see like, oh wow, I've already done this much, or oh, you're like this much is left. And it just gives a really good visual for what you're saving or what debt you're paying off. So it can be tailored to whatever your needs are. And otherwise, that's going to be it for today's training. I know we covered a lot of little different topics on digital couponing, on saving, on ways to find deals and coupons online. So I hope that some of it was helpful for you. Um, yeah, thank you for joining us for our springtime training. And just a reminder for TANF participants, please complete SCARE survey that's in the description box on YouTube in order to receive your work participation hours for this workshop. And as always, feel free to reach out to us at SCARE if you have any questions. Have a great day.